Good evening and welcome to DarkHour Paranormal. I'm your host, folks. I brought back an old friend. I have in the studio with us Naviae Allora, and she's going to be talking to us about healing, paganism, witchery, medicine, herbs, natural medicines, of course, and a lot more. I'm glad to see you guys are here tonight. Thanks for joining. We've got a great show. Martin R., I see you in the chat there, buddy. Stu Gerson, what's up, buddy? I haven't seen you for a little while. Well, I see you other places, but not here. Oh, goodness. You guys are in for a treat tonight, let me tell you. I wanna just talk about Naviae for just a moment here. I'm going to give you a little background on her. Very, very interesting person. Naviae Allora, a national-born clairvoyant medium and a lifelong experiencer of the weird. She is a certified energy since 1999. Naviae is a pagan priestess, a world traveler, and a wandering witch. She offers psychic tarot and mediumship, Akashic Records, past and parallel life consultations, distant Reiki healings, Mayan Astrology charts and relationship readings, and a witch podcast on many platforms such as Apple, Google, and Spotify. And of course, as always, in checking out some of her work, and I would hope all that information in the description below. So please check it out and support, subscribe, like, and all those great things that help us keep going here. But without further ado, I'd like to bring on my good man Rick from Rick's Realm. He is also DarkHour. I know some of you are catching up. And of course, Naviae Allora. How's everybody doing tonight?
Very good.
Good to see you guys. Uh-oh. There we go. Lost some audio. Everybody all right? Everybody good?
Good as gold.
Good? All right. Naviae, thank you for joining us today. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to
I'm not hearing.
inform the
Sorry,
world
Michael.
of who you are. And
I'm not hearing.
You're not hearing me?
Yeah, or no, Naviae. I hear you.
Naviae, give us a 1-2 check if you don't mind. Nope, I don't have it.
That's all right. This is what makes live streaming so beautiful, folks. Just deal with us here for a moment.
This is why I like doing it.
Figure out these little snafus that come along with. There we go. We've got Naviae.
I heard her. There she
I
is.
did something. I don't know what I did.
Oh,
Perfect.
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
In the end here. Start at the beginning with you. Where did you grow up, and how did you get into what you're into today?
Oh my gosh. I grew up in New England, and I started having weird experiences. I guess like my memories began around 4, where I had a near-death experience. I almost drowned in our family pool. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I can't hear you. Uh-oh. Meow, meow. Can you hear me? No.
We're okay.
Yeah?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Yep.
So I had jumped in our family pool without my life vest on. I couldn't swim yet, and I was drowning. And I remember leaving my body and seeing my mother at the end of the pool, like frozen, unable to get to me. And my higher self, or great voice, sometimes people call it that, like the, holy guardian angel maybe, said to me, she's not going to save you. You have to save yourself and get to the side of the pool. And I had this flash of like a doggy paddle move. And I sort of, limped my way across the pool and got out and, survived. And then a few weeks later, I was jumping on the edge of my bed and jumped and fell off and like cut my ear off. And
Ooh.
I know, like concussions. They put me in a straitjacket, and I remember leaving my body and seeing myself like bleeding out and thinking, look, it's all in my hair, and I still can see it.
Oh,
Like
Jesus.
I had like corn silk kind of hair as a little kid, and I remember seeing like the matted blood around my head and my ear. But right after that, those two experiences, I started leaving my body a lot and having freaky dreams that would come true, especially around relatives getting sick or dying.
Do you think that your experience with the drowning, well, the near drowning and the fall was sort of a catalyst of sort for that? Do you think that maybe the experience opened you up?
Absolutely. Yeah. And the house that I lived in was really haunted, and the spirits just wouldn't leave me alone as a kid after that. And my grandmother lived with us, my mother's mother, and she would come and lay with me, because if she was in the room, they would leave me alone. But the minute I was alone, like they're touching me and whispering and like giving me images and like taking me out of my body. And I can like see the nightlight in the corner of the room from the ceiling point of view. It's like super trippy. And I think as a 4-year-old, kind of having that disconnect from the big people, that they're not going to save you, it like put me in charge in a way of my destiny and my reality. And I started telling them, you know, there's a person that lives in my closet and comes out at night. There's an old lady sweeping the floor in the kitchen. Don't you see her? You know, like Uncle John is going to die on my birthday. And then he would. And then she found out that there was an old lady that lived in the house before us and died in the kitchen and had 4 sons. It was just this whole, like, I knew the whole story of the house because they told me it, you know, but I had no way of knowing it as a 4 or 5-year-old, whatever. So yeah, absolutely. It opened me up. And I feel like a lot of my clients now are like, how can I get open? How can I get in touch with my sensitivities? And I feel like my whole life I've been trying to close them down to a functional, be in the world, mundane style level. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I guess that's how I got here. Just as a way to manage it, I had to learn about it and to turn it from sort of a curse, it felt like sometimes, because it was a really lonely reality, you know, to tell people this is what you know to be true, and people tell me that you're lying, you know, or it's not real, but it's like, you know, that it is. And I would hear that voice encourage me a lot. It would say, like, you know more than they do, just be quiet, you know.
Yeah. I mean, that's interesting. You know, a lot of people still feel that way in their adulthood too. Now, of course, it's much more impressionable for a child to go through that sort of ostracization, in a sense, just because of what they've experienced or what they're comfortable sharing and what they're saying. You know, everybody has to kind of keep in mind too, as we're, you know, raising our children, that we're giving them our perception of the world. And if we're not secure in that in any way, that they're going to take on that quality. So that's, you know, that's very empowering as a beginning to, you know, your path on what you're doing now. Where did the healing aspect come in? So you were very aware, and you started to, you know, be aware of your intuition, and you were able to even see ghosts, or, you know, let's say spirit for the moment, and that they would come to you. There was that perception there. Where did the healing aspect of all of this come for you?
Well, it's weird because I don't know if I would consider myself a healer. I feel like I trained and took teachers on to kind of unlock that healing. It began with trying to heal myself, you know,
Okay.
like heal thyself. That's so true. And that was true for me. And it, Reiki or energy healing began for me around 95, I guess, and maybe 96. And I went and got my first massage, and it was a friend of mine, a new friend. And at the end of the massage, she just kind of like rocked my body. And it was like she had on heating pads on her hands. It was such warmth. And at the end of the massage, I asked her, you know, what was the energy or the heat? Because it did feel like energy to me. Because I was already learning about witchcraft and practicing magic a bit, and meditating, and was already kind of on that path, reading tarot for a few years by now. And she said, "Oh, it's Reiki. It's an energy healing." And she put me in touch with her teacher, and then I got my attunement, my first attunement, and then a few years later got my second attunement, and then a few years later got my master teacher attunement. And it's like a whole body of work you have to learn in order to pass on Reiki. So you could be a Reiki master and then master teacher. So it's like it's like a hyphen or something. But so I just kept going with it, and it felt really good. I felt like I had unlocked something within myself, and I would be in a grocery store and my hands would just, and I would look around and I would see someone that looked really sad or super, maybe like they had depleted energy. I started to be able to see the life force in people when it was low or when it was vibrant on a more acute level. And doing the Reiki 2 level, you can send it through space and time. So that was super awesome to be able to hear about a situation, a crisis, or someone that was in pain and was nowhere near me, and I could just send them like a bubble of Reiki, and they would give me feedback that they received it. Or even if it was strangers, it was just, you could subtly feel it like sinking and being received. I feel like Reiki worked with a lot of latent human abilities that were just maybe out of touch with right now. And then I went to herbal medicine school, again, because I had drank some poisoned water when I was living on a farm. And
Sorry.
yeah, just happened to drink
one
some
of those
poisoned
things,
water.
yeah.
But it's funny because that's what started me on my journey. You know, I was living in this like rural community and had just arrived, and I thought I saw people getting water from this spigot that had a filter on it, but the filter was broken. No one was actually getting water to drink out of there, and I'm like guzzling it down, and they're like, "Whoa, don't drink that. It's from the farms, like all the agriculture."
Jeez.
You know, pesticides, and I'm like, you know, and within a day or so, I got like styes on my eye and like weird like growth in my throat, and I was like poisoned. And I went to the Natch, or the health food store in town. This is in like outside of Chico, California. And this herbalist lady walked up to me, and she like grabbed me by my shoulder. She's like, "You're poisoned. I can see it in your face, and you need da 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 da."
Oh, Jesus.
And she was, yeah, and she gave me all of these like, "You need this, you need that, you need this, you need that, and that," and then shortly after, I went and lived in a yoga community on this mountain in Santa Cruz, and I had long dreadlocks at the time, and I shaved my head and burned them in the fire and did all these like panchakarma cleansing techniques to like detoxify. And then I went to British Columbia, and I feel like I had gotten some of the poison out, but I still had this eczema that was so raw and painful. I had never experienced so much like day-to-day agony being in my body. And I'm going to say someone's name and I'm going to give her a shout out, but I was about to leave this ashram in California to go to their sister center in British Columbia. And one of the people that had moved in to the cabin that I was living in was from British Columbia, from that center. And she was like up at 4 a.m. doing her yoga asana. And I mean, she was just like vibrating off the planet, so pure and awesome. And she said to me, you know, do you know Rainbow May? And I said, no. And she said, oh, when you get to Salt Spring Island, you have to meet Rainbow May. Like, you guys are, you know, love her. So I arrived at the Salt Spring Center in British Columbia, and literally was like walking out into the path, and this woman is like walking up towards me with a big towel wrap. She had just gotten a massage, and she's like, oh, dear one, you know, like kind of, because it's run by an Indian guru. So she's just kind of like being silly. And I looked at her and I said, are you Rainbow May? And she said, yes. And she knew who I was,
Oh,
and we
wow.
hugged. Yeah, it was just instant. I loved her. And she looked, it was all over here on my wrists, especially. And she took my wrist and she said, come here. And she like led me into the forest. And then she's like digging up, like in her robe and, you know, turban, hair wrap. She's like in the dirt with the stick, digging out burdock root. She's like, take this, grate it, make a tea. La la la. She's like, here, this is chickweed. Put it in your salad. And this is cleavers. And she like gathered all this up. And she's like, gallium apirin. Put it in the juicer. Do a shot a day. No. It'll clean your blood. And we're gonna find you yellow dock. And we're gonna find you burdock root. And we're gonna find you. And I'm just like, bip 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 bip. And I did it for like 4 months. I was just drinking all this herbal tea and fasting and cleansing and juicing, and I would like go out into the woods every morning and forage my medicine. It was crazy. And I fell in love with the green world then. Like, everything I needed to heal myself was right in this little patch of forest, you know? And
Wow.
yeah, so it really was a
So
journey
you
to heal
never used
myself.
any conventional medicine when you realized that you were poisoned. You did something completely and entirely different, right?
Yeah, I didn't do anything conventional until, I will tell you, towards the end of my time in British Columbia, um, the eczema was like literally coming out of the poison was coming out of my skin through the eczema. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be gross, but it like broke through my skin.
Whatever.
And
Yep.
it was kind of gnarly. And, you know, everyone is a doctor. Everyone's telling you, you know, pee on it, put on this, you know. So it wasn't because of the herbs. It was because of me feeling desperate and scared that my skin cracked. It was a lot. I'm like super squeamish, you know. So I think I just overdid it and it got infected. I mean, now it's all over. It's under my armpits, it's on my neck. It's and I'm like this balls rashy woman. It was not a good time. I'll tell you. It was
Poor thing.
humbling. It was a humbling moment. But I started to get a fever, and the people that ran, I was like in charge of the kitchen for breakfast, and they were like, get out of the kitchen, like you need to rest. Oh my God, girl, you know. And my friend that I had met in California was now back in British Columbia, Meredith, and she said, I'm gonna take you to the doctor. Like, I'm concerned. You're sleeping a lot. I think you have an infection. I think you're feverish. So she took me to this really sweet Canadian clinic, and the woman sat with me for an hour and a half and talked about the whole journey. I told her I was poisoned. I told her the whole thing. And she's like, okay, well, I hear that you've been trying alternative things. I think they've really helped, but now this is like crisis, and we're going to give you some, I think it was cortisone and an antibiotic for the infection. And she's like, and I'm sorry, because you're not a Canadian, I have to charge you. And I'm like, oh, that's fine. It's fine. She's like, I'm very sorry. And I'm like, well, how much will it be? And she said, it's $40 Canadian. And I'm like, for the medicine? And she's like, no, for the medicine and for the visit today. And I'm like,
Wow. Wow.
what? I mean, the cortisone would have been that much here. And this was 2005, 4. I walked out of there like, oh my God, we're getting so ripped off in the US. Can't even believe it. Yeah. And
Yep.
it like cured it right up. And I rarely get any kind of flare up. I still do herbs for it every now and again. If if I don't drink enough water, or if it's too hot, or if I'm going through like a lot of stress. Like when my mom and dad both passed away within like a year and a half of each other, and I got it on my like between my fingers a few times,
Mm.
but I feel like it's mostly gone. Now it's just kind of like comes and goes every couple years maybe.
That's a hell of an experience. And you know, I do believe, and I've always held the belief that yes, you can use alternative medicine, you can use the herbs, you can use the energy, but there's a part of that picture that's missing that a lot of people don't realize, and that's the connectivity to yourself. That's the balance that you lead throughout your life, so that if something happens, you know, seemingly out of the blue, where you drink some water that's tainted and you have to go through this process, you're already sort of aligned, you know, with the energy that you need to be working with. You know, again, this is something that can take people a very long time to, you know, achieve. But I believe that at least in the way that, you know, our indigenous ancestors lived, they were more in balance, so that if something like that came, I mean, there were no hospitals back then. They used traditional methods, and they used magic and other, you know, energetic practices. I think it was easier to work with those who were more in balance in terms of healing. For ourselves, you know, those who would, you know, seek the alternate route, every once in a while you'll get yourself to a point where you got to take something conventional, and that's okay, because you're just literally at the edge, you know, the very end of, you know, how far you can go with that. And this just brings you back into balance, you know, heals the body at that moment, because you're already affected. It's not the preventative process, you know, that a lot of people don't pay attention to. So that's a hell of an experience. Now, you mentioned a little bit earlier when you were speaking, an empathic part of your nature, how you're walking into these settings and you could feel people and so forth. Has that been something, well, let's put it this way. I'm going to start it here. Is that something that we can all do, or is that something that needs to be cultivated, or is it something you're just born with?
I feel like it's a scale, honestly, because I think some people come in with a more openness, a more empathic nature, a sensitivity. But I do think it's something that you can cultivate, just like, you know, you're a musician. I've had 7 or 8 guitars given to me. I'm not a strummer. I can learn the chords, I can study it, but I just can't get a strum. It's bad. So it doesn't come second nature to me. And it's just not a gift for me. But I can maybe learn and be decent, you know, but it's going to take me a professional tutor and lessons and a lot of time, where I don't have a propensity for it. But for whatever reason, my experiences, and I also have learned that both sides of my family, my mother's mother's side and my father's mother's side, has witches, clairvoyance, mediumships, and I can get more into that later, but there's already that sort of like DNA hotspot of lineage that I've tapped into. And I totally feel that it's inherent, or it's inheritable. Just like people say that, you know, their great grandfather was a trumpet player and their dad was a piano player and now they're a violinist. And, you know, you see it kind of, maybe there is like a musical talent gene. Maybe there is like a, you know, a gift of empathy or clairvoyance that gets passed down. It seems like it is. In my experience, it is. But I mean, that's part of what I do, is I have clients that I teach responsible magic practice to. I like to really emphasize the ethics with magic. I've seen so many fellow witches, colleagues, what have you, of mine kind of go off the deep end with spells and hexes, and like snaps back, you know. So I teach about, you know, one of my favorite classes that I teach is spells, why and why not. Like, just because you can doesn't mean you should, and maybe you ought to, maybe you shouldn't, you know. And kind of, it gives like a very kind of like a checklist of, have you done this? Okay, proceed there, like almost like a flow chart of spells, you know, or magic use. But maybe I'm rambling, but yeah.
Nope, that's fine. That's you know, it's a stream of consciousness here, and we're having a conversation,
Yeah.
and that's the forum. So please, you know what I mean. If you want to keep going, keep going. It's really interesting. You brought up the inheritable factor of clairvoyance and intuition and stuff like that. I've come across that quite often, believe it or not. And a lot of people that I've spoken to, they've felt that it was something that's been passed down, whether it was in their parents' generation or if it was in a previous generation. There's something inheritable there. And it's always kind of sparked my curiosity, because we've all heard about how cells can carry memory, cellular memory, and so forth. Do you think that there is any credibility to that? Or do you think that something else more energetic? What do you think? Why do you think, or I should say, how do you think this stuff is passed down from generation to generation? Do you have a thought on that?
It would all be speculation, obviously.
Yeah, sure.
But I feel like there's a lot more to DNA than we know, and what it actually is, and how it moves information from generation to generation. I feel like there's a lot to it with the magical ability, or the gifts, so to speak, that we all have inherited, varied.
Mhm.
I also think it's like that nature versus nurture. So if nature is the DNA, what about the environment that you grow up in? I mean, I have friends who are part of like hereditary witches that are part of a tradition that they've, you know, their granny came from Scotland, and this is the magic that they're, you know, they don't, you know, they're like harvesting tomatoes in the moonlight. They're, you know, doing this with the herbs, and, you know, baking bread on this day. And it's all very like kitchen witchery and traditions that they've all been doing for 300 years or whatever, that comes from the old country. I feel like we are a bit disconnected in the United States, at least, from, I know my family is, from where they came from. It's like, I went to France a few years ago, and I was sitting with a family, beautiful family that my partner's known for 20 something years. They've like visited back and forth when they were in college age and such, like exchange type students, and kept in touch. And I was looking around, and his friend had inherited this 16th century mill, flour mill, with a river and this big old beautiful stone house. I looked around and I thought to myself, this is not what my ancestors had going on in Italy and Poland. They wouldn't have left this situation. Like, his family stayed because they were landholders and had this inheritable property for 500 years or whatever. My family were like peasants that risked everything, got on a ship with like a backpack and said, okay, like, I have nothing to lose. I'm going to hit the road and hope for the best. And started from the ground up. And I know what that feeling is like. I feel like I live with that in my blood, that give away everything and like throw the dice, see what happens, you know, nothing ventured, nothing gained. Like, I've been a big risk taker in my life, and it's paid off most of the time. And I feel like I've inherited that from them. And I realized that this country, our United States, is pretty much a land of misfit toys, people that came from all these different places because they were seeking a better life. They weren't the aristocrats in most cases. You know, they were at least like the Ellis Island waves, right? So there's something to that we are all sort of self-made people and gypsies in a sense, and we've lost touch with our roots, maybe because our ancestors didn't want to remember. Maybe it was super painful, or maybe it was painful to remember, like no looking back, like I left my whole family and I'm by myself and now I'm on this boat. Like my grandmother, my babcia, lost most of her hair on the trip from Poland to New York. was like so stressful in the sea air and whatever. She like had a shoebox full of hair. My dad talked about she kept that shoebox. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And interesting with them, my dad was the youngest of 6 children, and she only spoke Polish. And I found out that, so when I was about 5, she passed away. I only have one good memory of her, my babcia. It's a really happy memory. I'm dancing ballet for her and she's like clapping. But that's all I really remember. But after she passed away, my dad sort of inched away from his family, and then we didn't see them again until I was 17. And it was only because his 2 nieces, who are older than me, because he's the youngest and had me late in life, you know, begged my mother, like, can we please come and be with our cousin and our uncle? Like, we didn't do anything wrong. And I guess there was a big falling out. So when I finally got to re-meet that side of the family, I was almost 18 and had just gotten my first tarot cards. And my cousin Diane, who is my father's niece, my first cousin, I grew up hearing, "You're just like Diane," from my mom. I would do something and she would say, "Oh, you're just like your cousin Diane." And I would think to myself, well, I would like to like freaking know this person, that like, why can't I know this person, you know? And when she came to the house for our dinner, our reunited, you know, reunion dinner, I was going up to my room for something and she said, "I'm going to come with you." And I was walking up the stairs for her and she said, "I know you have the sight." And I was like, "You do?" Because I knew, you know, but I didn't know anyone else that did. And she said, well, she said, yeah. She said, "Well, we all do." And I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "Well, your Auntie Helen was a medium and used to have seances on the new moon. Didn't you know that?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Well, your house is so haunted." And I said, "I know." And she's like, "Your closet, the hall closet, the staircase, the basement." And she's pointing all the places I would, you know, 20 years almost, seeing these things come out. And like wispy things and dark shadow things and whatever. She knew. She already could tell. And she had remembered from, you know, 20 years ago. So we only had maybe 5 years of connection, and then I moved out of New England to California, and then I didn't see her very much. But in that time, we studied tarot together, we studied crystals together, and we talked about my aunt, or our aunt Helen, that used to do seances and probably some like herbal witchery. I know they made poppets, so that was going on. But she was reluctant to really tell me a lot. She focused on the tarot with me, and the first time I went to her house, she opened the door and she was wearing like a bandana that she had made like crystal pockets for.
Huh.
And it looked crazy. And I thought to myself, oh, you're just this, you're my weirdo cousin. You're perfect, you know? And she was like, "Come on in," you know, with her like frigging crystal headband, looking like a, you know, cuckoo person. I love her. She passed away, but yeah. So now fast forward a bunch of years, and I find all of this information from a cousin that I hadn't been in touch with. I found her on Facebook, and she sort of we hadn't been in touch since I was in my 20s, so 20 something years. And when I messaged her, I said, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I found you." And she said, "I've been looking for you too." And she said, "Oh, I see that you're in the craft." And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Well, we're all witches. You know that, right?" And I said, "No, I didn't know that." And she said, "Yeah," and told me about my aunt doing the seance. And I said, "Well, that I knew." And she says, "But we're all witches." She was Babcia, my grandmother, her great grandmother. She was a clairvoyant witch. And I was sitting there like, "Are you kidding me?" And she said, "Your dad never told you?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Do you think he kept," I'm gonna cry. She goes, do you think he kept you from us because he didn't want you to know, like, who you were? And I mean, he had already passed, so I can't ask him, but I think so.
Right.
He was
Oh.
so Catholic and so into Jesus and Mary, and I mean, when I would tell him about the spirits touching me or coming to wake me up at night or whispering my name or giving me visions of things to come, he would literally write on a piece of paper, blessed be the holy name of Jesus or something like that, and stick it. I would find it in my pillowcase. I'd like turn, I'm like,
Oh.
what is this sticking in my eye? And it was this cardboard and it never helped anything, you know. I would find like I'd find holy water vials from Lourdes and from the Catholic church he went to, and he would be like, here's this blessed rosary, so and so blessed for you. And someone had met the Pope and he asked them to bless one of those scapulas. You know what that is? It's like if you die wearing it, you go right to heaven or something. Some other fairy tale.
Yes.
And he had the Pope bless it, and he was like, never take this off, wear it all the time. It's like he was trying to like exorcise the witch out of me. But I didn't know what was going on. Yeah.
Right.
That's interesting.
That is
Crazy.
Wow.
And it's all just come out since he's passed away. I didn't know that it was like a deliberate attempt at. Yeah.
You know, if I was to guess, I would say that it was probably in good intention. Oddly enough. Maybe, I mean, you know, maybe you know something I don't, but the way you're describing it, it sounds like he was trying to do something good for you. But I mean, you know, someone who doesn't have the understanding of what that sort of thing is, you know, that you do, there's a lot of fear around it. And of course, you know, there's many things that are responsible for that fear. And I think that's why it's so important to talk about some of these things openly today, especially when it comes to witchcraft. Okay. Because, you know, a lot of that stuff is secret, and it's secret for a reason, and it's trusted to those who it can be trusted to. And there's, again, good reason for that. So when anybody gets into a coven or any sort of practice like that, there is an extensive line of work that you need to do to build yourself up that takes a lot of time and a lot of study that goes into it. But it's important to talk about this stuff, I think, to kind of absolve that fear that surrounds something so natural and is probably more natural than any of the modalities we have currently today, you know? Wow. That's crazy. I mean, you know, just having, you know, the family aspect involved in all of it too. It's just, that's amazing. I want to bring it back a little bit here because you had mentioned your Reiki training, and I've shared my story, and I've had others talk about healing and Reiki healing and energy healing, whatever you'd like to call it, wherever you're from. And for everybody, it seems to be a different process. For example, very quickly myself, I didn't really go through any cleansings of any sort until my mastery symbol, wherein I got sick for 6 months. And, you know, if I hadn't reached out, I mean, who knows what would have happened. But it was a result of what I had gone through emotionally, physically, and the cleansing aspect of it. Can you talk a little bit about your Reiki training in respect to somebody who hasn't experienced anything like that, but might be interested in exploring the avenue of energy healing?
Well, they call that a healing crisis, right? And some of the people that were in my Reiki master training / teacher training didn't want, like, resisted getting their mastery attunement because they just didn't want to go through another healing crisis, and they knew it was going to come. One of the ladies had like an eruption of acne all over her face for like 6 months after her Reiki 2. And she said, you know, it was a deterrent for some people because they knew it was going to show up somehow and you didn't know how, you know. There's ways for it to be supported, the healing crisis. So it's a gentle healing versus a crisis. and to sort of
Mm-hmm.
shift it as like, and this might sound kind of woo, but
We like woo.
yeah, if you can affirm that you are healing, that you are the energy of healing, that you are the process of healing, and to think of it as already like perfect and complete. And I don't know. I mean, I haven't really mastered that mindset either. I've had to kind of walk in a very practical, mundane way to support myself through different healing processes. Oh, I'm hearing a tone in my ear. That's crazy. But I think there's different ways to support yourself, and to maybe that's part of the journey, is to allow the cleansing to come as it will, and to know that you'll be supported through, maybe ask for synchronicity to come and guide you. Like, is it going to be herbs that helps you out? Is it going to be sound healing that helps you out? Is it going to be doing Reiki shares with other practitioners that you're all, working through it together? That's why it's nice to do a master attunement, or any attunement actually, with a group that you can sort of be a pod and do weekly or monthly check-ins and sort of support each other through it. But in my experience, the people that I have attuned haven't had a huge dramatic healing crisis or crash. I feel like the way that, as a facilitator, I've alleviated that is by immediately getting your hands on someone when the attunement is fresh. Like, as soon as
Okay.
as soon as the attunement is passed, I'm giving out my secrets. As soon as the attunement is passed, I gift them a crystal that I've divined for them. So I pass the attunement, it's done, and I give them in their hands a crystal, and then I just have them hold it. And it's like that can like absorb the energy and get it flowing right away. And then I'll have them put their hands on me so I can assure them that I'm feeling the energy transfer and they're good. And also, I'm kind of like checking in for any kind of blocks in their field that maybe needs to get smoothed out, or
What would that look like, or
so
feel like?
Okay, so one thing is, I like to put plastic bags or plastic wrap over people's fronts, and I'll have them, I'll blindfold them, like the person that's about to be attuned. I'll blindfold them, and I'll put one person in front of them with plastic wrap over their front, and one person without plastic wrap in front of them, and I'll have them run their hand over them, and they can feel that dead energy. And then I'll have them go and touch the person next to them, and they're like, oh wow, okay, to be able to sense in themselves, stuck, not flowing, like I can feel something, but why can't I access it? And then heat or tingling or vitality, however that transfers into your sensory. But that's how I perceive it. When I'll run my hand over someone, it's like, nope, and it's not technically Reiki, but I went to massage school, so I know a bit of acupressure. So sometimes I can feel into like that. Like, it's easy to tell on your face, you have like little divots, little dents in your bones. Those are usually acupressure points that you can kind of send Reiki into. And I imagine it kind of like spiraling in, and I see it kind of like, and I sense it kind of popping a little bit, and just, and it, now I can see the current again. Sometimes I'll see it visually. I'll get like a color or a knowing, but I do sense a lot with my fingers and hands. I don't know if that answers.
I've heard a lot about that, and that was a really really well put together description there, I think, because, you know, a lot of people have different experiences, like I mentioned, and the saran wrap thing, that's ingenious. That's ingenious. It's one of the hardest things when you're talking to people or training them in this sort of thing is to get the tactile sense about, you know, what we're doing. And I always use the energy ball. You know, you do the friction thing and you get the energy ball, you
So
feel it.
fun.
It's awesome. It's great. And most people, I'd say probably 90% of the people that I've shown that to was they were able to feel something that they couldn't quite put together in a logical way. But that's really interesting. You know, people can't, it's not just about, you know, putting your hands on somebody and allowing the conduit to take place. It's also about being active in that role and feeling out the arc field and, you know, the crossing of different, you know, ways of doing things. So you bring in massage, you bring in acupuncture, you bring in Reiki, you bring in Kundalini work, you know, whatever it is, these things can really come together. Recently, I had somebody comment on one of the videos, the idea of everything kind of intertwining and how it wasn't really accepted or really studied as much as it probably should be. And I think we should look at those things. I really do. I think it is all intertwined. And when you're using these different modalities of healing, they complement each other. Why do you think, and again, I'm talking to you as we're talking here, okay? Why do you think the cleansing process or the healing crisis happens for some people? Is it emotional? Is it more emotionally based, or is it more physically based, or is it a combination of both that somebody would go through some sort of cleansing like that? And as a follow-up, does it relate to vibration?
I think it depends on the individual for sure. And the first thing I thought of was when I was doing massage and the office manager and I became friends. We're still friends to this day, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And I am really sensitive to scent, and
Ooh, interesting.
it really a keen sense of smell, and I'll even get phantom smells sometimes, which is usually unpleasant, unfortunately. But I was working at this spa, and one of the clients came in, and it was like she had just sprayed herself just for me, and now I'm in a 8x10 room with this person closed, and I'm touching her skin, absorbing all of these neurotoxins,
Mm-hmm.
And I came out of the treatment just ash white and just feeling nauseous and spinny, and the office manager told the owner, she's gonna have to go home or lay down because she's ash white and she doesn't look well. And the owner kind of was giving me some stink about it, like, you guys are so sensitive, kind of thing. And my friend told me that she was like, ugh, you guys are so sensitive, la la la. And my friend was like, well, you know what? At least we process stuff in the moment, and you're going to get some big disease. And that's what she was like, kind of just smack talking to me about it. But that's what I think it is. Like, I'm so acutely aware of every little thing going on with me, and I try to honor it. I try and be like, oh, wow, I need to rest. I'm going to just sit here and hydrate all day, or I'm not going to ignore this, whatever. I'm going to take this herb for it. I'm like on my stuff. I'm on my stuff as much as I can be, emotionally and trigger wise, and, physically trying to like keep a balance. And it's in the front of mind a lot for sensitive people because we can't just ignore it. But I think maybe people who are coming to Reiki and haven't had that awareness or haven't made self-care or self-healing, or has some trauma that has been buried and they haven't wanted to look at it, Reiki kind of like floods that up to be healed, to have awareness around it, to transmute that energy. And I feel like it doesn't let you hide from what's going on inside of you that wants attention, that wants to be, it's all to upgrade, it's all to uplift. but it seems in my experience of seeing other people go through that Reiki process, again, mostly my my colleagues, not so much people I've taught, but I do see sometimes a sniffle, and then I'll see, you know, eruption of their skin for 6 months, and, you know, maybe like, wow, I remember that so and so traumatized me as a kid, and I'm reliving that and writing about it. And I had this friend who had some sexual trauma come up, and she did this whole like spoken word like ritual play with this box, and I mean she made it art, you know, after her Reiki 1 attunement. So it can be creatively worked through. It doesn't have to like level you, you know, it doesn't have to be like I'm on my couch in a puddle. And that's why it's good to have community and to have a supportive instructor that can sort of, you know, okay, wow, I'm keeping up with what's going on with you, and it looks like you need some support, and to have sort of a safety net, and not just like, here's a new attunement, poof, out the door, don't call me again. And what do you do then? You know what I mean? It's important to
Yeah.
have
Oh, absolutely.
to yeah, it's important to have a community. The C word.
Absolutely. That's yeah, I'm going to share a very amusing story very quickly, because this I used to be a lot more active in the Reiki healing than I am now. However, if anybody is in need or comes across my path, I'm more than happy to jump into it. I've just been very busy with a lot of things, as you can very well see. That being said, I used to work for a burger joint, and I was an assistant general manager and had quite a few younger guys underneath me. And there was this one grill cook who came to me. He was a very sensitive individual, absolutely phenomenal R&B singer. The guy would come up and sing to me while we were on the line, and I'd start crying. That's how beautiful this guy's voice was, and his soul matched it. Just a really, really, really nice guy. So he came to me and he said, listen, I'm having a lot of trouble. He had 3 kids from, you know, differing mothers, if you will, and it was just a lot for him at the time. So he knew that I was always talking about energy and this, you know, thing. He says, you know, is there something you can do for me? I said, well, come over to my house. We'll do a session. We'll see what happens. You know what I mean? I can offer you what I can offer you, but I can't guarantee you anything. But if you were to press me up against the wall, I think it would help. So he agreed, and he came to my house a couple days later. He sat in a recliner in the middle of the living room, and I shut all the doors off, and we did the session. The interesting thing about the session for me is that I ended up being gravitated towards different parts of his body that were structural, that I didn't realize he had issues with, that he only later told me that had been bothering him. And for him, the Virgin Mary, or an entity that looked like the Virgin Mary, which I don't have much experience with, came in. And that was something I was able to relate to him. And he wasn't really a religious sort, but he was a very curious individual, and, you know, would seek to research some of these topics on his own and come up with his own opinions. So long story short, the session ended. He ended up getting emotional, and that, of course, is always supported when we're doing this sort of work. He took his time, came in, thanked me for the session, and left looking absolutely exhausted, as it sometimes goes. So the next shift I had with him was 2 days later. It was a morning shift, and we were supposed to go into the afternoon. So he comes up to me about an hour into the shift. He said, man, can I talk to you for a minute? I was like, yeah, sure. Yeah. He said, listen, come on, we got to go in the other room. I don't want anybody to hear this. That's okay. Let's go. So we go into the office, and he says, listen, I don't know how to tell you this, but since that session we did, I've had the runs consistently, and it hasn't stopped. So if I have to go to the bathroom today, please just let me go to the bathroom.
Oh,
I'm so sorry. I forgot to mention that could be a side effect of, you know, what we're doing here. And we had a good chuckle about it, and he was okay a day later. But I thought that was kind of funny because I neglected to inform him that could be something that happened. And yeah, so, you know, it's interesting. It's a really interesting thing.
that's
now I'd like to
hilarious.
kind of switch gears for a moment here. I want to switch gears for a moment here. Because, I mean, again, you're such a fascinating individual and such a well of knowledge and experience. Obviously, we can't cover it all tonight, but I'm going to try to get a lot of it. So you do readings for people. And one of the things in your bio that really stuck out to me was that you work with parallel life readings. Can you first explain what that is?
Okay. I'm not even sure when it started coming through. I got training to read the Akashic Records, like Edgar Cayce style from the ARE, not from them, but from someone who was trained by them. And 98 or 99, when I was living in Chicago. And it was like, I mean, I'm clairvoyant in my readings anyway, and I've always kind of been as long as I can remember. But this was crazy. This was like I'm seeing a movie in my head when I would tune into the Akashic Records. And sometimes it would be like people would ask a question and I would see a door slam or a door like lock. And it was like, talk about plastic in front of you, like dead air, like, nope. And I would just be like, I don't know, I can't go there, you know? And then, so it was primarily past life that I could totally see it was an older version of Earth, you know, by the dress, by the way the houses looked, by the, you know, circumstances. And somewhere maybe around 10 years ago, I guess. Oh, I'm hearing some. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Can you hear us? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, there's just like a static or a crackle. Maybe it's the astral vacuum cleaner I was talking about before.
Okay.
And maybe around 8-10 years ago, someone contacted me. I used to have an Etsy shop that I was selling handmade spell candles, and I did some readings out of there. And this woman contacted me. All I knew was that she, you know, I knew her first name, her birthday, so I could get into the records. And her question was, how do I unlock my creativity? And her email. That's all I knew. And I tuned in and started doing the reading for her, and she wanted like a transcript reading where I'm just writing as I see it. I'm not talking to them. There's no video chat. It's just her question, and I'm in session remotely. I was hearing a lot of crackle. I don't know. You can hear it in the chat. Crackle, crackle.
I think you still have it now?
Yeah. That's better.
How about now?
That's great. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Great.
Ding,
Thank you.
ding,
Sorry.
ding. It's okay.
I apologize.
So this woman writes in to me and wants to know why or how she can unlock her creativity. So I tune into the records, and immediately they take me to this sort of like loft place. So, you know, 20-foot ceilings, this vast sort of loft, and there's these tremendous canvases with paint and art all over them. And I'm like, what is this place? It's ladders, obviously, so you can get and paint, like this whole lattice work of ladders and art supplies everywhere. And I'm looking around and I see these big giant windows on both sides of the room. And there's a sun there and there's a sun there. And I'm like, whoa, what's going on? And I kind of like looked around the room again and looked back up, and yeah, there's a sunlight from that way and there's a sun from that way. Unmistakable.
Huh.
It was so weird. And
You think
like
you're on
one
another
was
planet? or something?
Or a parallel life.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
That's
Yep.
what I'm calling it. A parallel Earth or a parallel, I don't know. I'm not even sure. But one was higher than the other. One was kind of like setting or different light quality, I guess. And then they showed me a paint tray. And they showed me this person, this artist, and she was like pinching her finger with like a stabbing herself with a needle and like bleeding into the paint trays. And she was like mixing her paint with it. And then it showed her like making these, you couldn't really see it, but it was in the paint and it energetically had such a power to it. And then they're showing me like fast forward. Now she's getting commissions and people are coming and she's getting a vial of their blood and she's adding it to their paint and she's painting it with their blood mixed in with the paint. So she gets more and more famous and then it gets dark. It's like she's using this as like a dark sorcery. It goes from, I won't tell you too much, but it goes down to a dark place. And I hear in my head, if they want to unlock their creativity, they need to make a spoken vow aloud to the universe that they will never use blood in their practices. So I'm like writing to this stranger, you know, I'm seeing two suns, there's a loft, la, 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 you're painting on these humongous canvases, you know, I'm telling her everything that I'm telling you, like you started using blood, then it was using blood of your clients. And this is the answer to never use blood. And I'm thinking, this person will think I am crazy, you know, but you have to be willing to look like a ninny in this sort of work. I mean, humble yourself and know you're just a channel, you're just a conduit, you're a hollow bamboo. Say what you get and detach from it, right? So I get a message from her after I deliver the reading, and she says, "Whoa, I'm a painter, and I'm a painter, and I haven't been able to do art for almost a year." And she said, "And I feel really blocked around it, and I literally look at my paints and my canvas and just have nothing." And it's been like a soulless experience for me because she's been painting for as long as she can remember. And she even said, like, I'm really good. And it's like a piece of me is missing. And she said, the other disappointment in her life was that she's unable to have a child. And she's been, this is where it gets weird because it's not weird enough yet. She says, every month I'm saving my menstrual blood into a jar. And this is the 9th month I've been doing it. And I was going to take the jar with the 9 months of menstrual blood and child. And she said, but I just threw it all away. And I'm not going to do that now. And then maybe 2 or 3 months later, after some time, a few months had passed, and she messaged me and she said, I'm like creating like crazy. I'm so renewed. And it was like, that was it. Something lifted and she had made that vow. And then she was able, because it was like from a parallel universe or something, maybe an alternate timeline. She was doing art in a dark way. It wasn't helping her collective soul. You know what I mean? Like the expression of herself was, it was like, maybe the timelines are coming together. Maybe we don't realize that we do affect other worlds, other timelines, other realities with our actions here. And her actions there were like a warning to the current lifetime. I feel like it was a parallel life because it looked modern time. It could have been an off-world experience. I don't know. I call it parallel. That's the only language I have for it. But that's the best.
That sounds incredibly accurate.
That was the coolest, or one of the coolest things that happened around that.
That's crazy. That's really cool. And it's really interesting the way that you bring that up too, because it's something I try to talk about a lot in certain ways where, I think choices dictate a path that we're going to take. And if you look at the idea that everything exists in the now and every possibility that's ever existed and ever will exist exists right in this moment, to me, we're the vessel that drives that experience. So we're sitting in front of, let's say, 10 lines, right? 10 choices that you can make going forward. I'm just simplifying it, of course. And any one of those directions you decide to take, you could skip over to the next line, pop into this one. You're making and creating this sort of a worm of a line of experience based on all the possibilities out there. So I have heard instances where you could call it someone's higher self, or you could call it a future self, would say, hey, listen, if you continue on this path, this is where it takes you. You are living that existence somewhere, and I'm warning you that that's what your experience is. And it's sort of cool to be able to, think maybe that there's a possibility you look back on yourself in some certain way to guide you in a collective way of all of your energy and your experiences through the physical and non-physical into a path that your deepest desire as a soul craves, that enlightenment path, that ascension, going up in vibration and so forth. That's really cool. I've always been so fascinated by the idea of parallel lives. Now, let me ask you a question. And I'll actually go off camera with you at some point, a little more into detail if you're interested. So there have been plenty of Black projects out there that claim, these participants claim, ones that were actually within the workings of the project, that they could go to work at their regular everyday job and yet be at a facility on a parallel timeline at the exact same time. And now years later, they remember both existences. And there's this incongruity between the memory, because I was in school in 3rd grade studying how to read, and yet at the same time I was in this facility, or whatever the case may be. I don't think this is the best example. I'm someone who's a lot older and working for that facility. Have you ever come into contact with anybody who believed that they lived on an alternate timeline at the same time they're living their physical existence, or heard anything like that?
No.
Okay. No, good, perfect. Then I'd like to move into the Akashic Records. Could you tell some of our listeners who are not very familiar with what the Akashic Records are, what that is exactly, and how do people? What are the ways? Because I know there's more than one. What are some of the ways you can access this repertoire of records? Naviae, we lost your mic. There we go.
Check.
There we go. Perfect.
Okay. The best I can explain it is that the records, or the Akashic Records, are the collective every thought, action, and deed of every person, every soul, a soul's record since its inception. And the way that I learned was through a sacred prayer that Edgar Cayce, or the Sleeping Prophet, he's known as, received or developed. And that's how I access it, or was trained to access it. I feel like I've been working with them so long, I just kind of like ask permission, and they open. I do get a verbal consent from the person. I want them to say out loud their name and birthday, and I give you permission to access my records. And then it's like agreed, and it kind of opens for me. I had a friend when I was in massage school, actually, that I would do record readings for. And she was a Pisces and super clairvoyant on her own train. And she wanted to learn how to open them in a different way. And like a true Pisces mystic, she used crop circles, and she got tattoos on her right here, 2 different crop circles, and one opened them and one closed them. And so she would just like focus on she would just focus on the crop circle and it was like zhuzh, and I would see which a lot of times when other practitioners are record readers, I'll see what they see in their reading for me, and they'll see what I see. It's like we take each other in the visions, you know.
Mhm.
And I could affirm to her like, yeah, you're in the records. I'm with you. I feel it. I see it, you know. And she's like, "La, la, la, la." And then it would she would close the records just by looking at them, and you would feel like the door open and the door close. It was those are the only two ways I know. Through the prayer, through the crop circles that my friend channeled or whatever. They were like legit crop circles, but I mean, I didn't see anywhere that it said this is what they're for. This is what she received, what she could use them as keys.
Okay. Yep. I can place that.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I'm sure there's other ways. I mean, I don't think that the ARE has the only access, you know, or Edgar Casey was the only method. It's just the method that I learned. But there are guardians, there are keepers of the records, and they're pretty serious about their job. I mean, I've had people ask me questions, and you know, the door will slam, and I'll say, I can't ask that. They won't let me know. And then they'll be like, well, how about this? And they'll kind of like try and scoot around and ask it another way. And then I'll get like a loud voice that says like, you tell them, la la la, you know, like, and
Mm-hmm.
they'll get stern with me if I keep pestering or don't honor their initial no.
Do you think there's an
Sorry.
extraterrestrial connection to these records and maybe the way that people are trying to access them? Do you think that there's that element there somewhere? You mentioned the crop circles, which, you know, I mean, I've had the pleasure of talking extensively to some people who work in decoding these things, and they feel very similar in the respect that they think that they're keys, and that they have certain energy about them, you know, intention and purpose behind them. And you're telling me that, you know, this woman had channeled these designs, and they must have been specifically for her vibration. Do you think there's an ET element to all this?
They were legit crop circles that had shown up somewhere.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I wasn't clear. But
oh no, that's
she
fine.
just
That even makes it more interesting.
yeah. No, they were legit crop circles somewhere in England that she had come across and just received in a meditation that this one would open the records and this one was to close them. And she anchored it with a ceremonial tattoo, ritual tattoos, and that was that. Yeah.
Man, I wish I knew which of those designs. That's you don't happen to know what designs they were, do you? By any chance?
I could probably pick them out. I mean, we're talking year 2000 that this happened, but I could probably pick out if I think they were in a crop circle book, actually.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow.
Yeah. This girl, she was something else. I had just finished massage school, and we were, you know, fast friends, and we were doing readings for each other all the time and trades. So we were all in each other's body fields and, you know, muscles, and always exchanging, you know, every couple of days for almost a year. And at the end of massage school, I realized that I had come through a rite of passage as a woman and finding sisterhood for the first time, like really finding sisterhood in myself and with her and another friend who ended up being my roommate after that. And I wanted to get my first tattoo. I had never had a tattoo at that time. And I knew I needed like to mark it, you know, and she inspired me with her crop circles tattoos. And I was like, I need to get a rite of passage tattoo to like mark this sisterhood and mark this huge healing time in my life. For anyone who's ever gone to massage school, hopefully it's been an amazing experience. And I kind of think every human should go through that. Learn about the body and learn about your body and working with others in a really respectful way, you know, to facilitate healing, to hold space as a healer is super positive and life affirming, because we don't have to have all the answers, but we can support each other, is kind of the way I was looking at it. So I asked her, I said, would you do a reading for me and see what comes through as far as what kind of rite of passage tattoo would be appropriate, So she's like, okay. And we're in her temple room in her apartment in Chicago. And she closed her eyes, and she had literally a wall of like 100 books. And she just starts like scanning, and she's like, making these sounds, And then she's like, okay. And she's like, that. And pulls the book out, opens to a page, and she goes, that, and shows it to me.
Huh.
And it is the veve for Oya. The symbol, or so like in Afro-Cuban religion and spirituality, sometimes they'll draw a symbol on the ground with cornmeal or flour or whatever, some sort of like symbol that indicates what energy they're calling forward, what force of nature, what orisha that they want to honor. Sometimes it's just a symbol for intent or whatever, but sometimes there are symbols to call in this energy, this god, goddess, orisha, right? It's not really a god, goddess. It's I guess considered a form of nature, a force of nature, or a form of embodied natural forces, maybe. So what she points out to me is the symbol for the wind goddess, the tornado goddess, she's sort of like the escort for the dead in a way, and governs the marketplace. And I wasn't super,
Wow.
and I'm still not super into voodoo or Ifa or Santeria or any of that, really. Although I do feel really connected to it, probably from past lives. So when she showed that to me, I was familiar enough with it from my studies in witchcraft and spirituality and alternate mysticism studies and such. I knew what that was. And I looked at her and I said, and she said, I am being spoken to. This is very clear. This. Just to like take away any doubt that I had. And it was like, blew my hair back. And I was like, okay, I'm hearing you, But it was so bizarre. And there's a history with Oya for me, because the first priestess I met when I lived in New England, when I first started studying Wicca, witchcraft, she had these beads on her wrist. And when I looked at them, when I first met her, I looked at her beads and they like glowed to me. They had an energy about them. And she saw me ogling them and she said, oh, my friend's a Santero. My friend's a Santero, and he read my head for me. And these beads are Oya. And I looked at her and she said, you were raised Catholic, right? And I said, yeah. And she said, she's Saint Teresa.
Huh.
And Saint Teresa, my mom's name was Teresa, and she was the only saint I ever prayed to. I used to have a shrine in my bedroom of Saint Teresa with novena cards and candles and rosary beads and roses. And I would do this prayer for 9 days and pray to Saint Teresa. And that was the only saint I ever like gave a crap about. And this is, oh yeah. So the way that it worked was the people from Africa were taken and they weren't allowed to practice their spirituality, their religion, the Ifa religion, in their new homes in the Caribbean and New Orleans, wherever they were taken. So they had to mask it. So they would be like, okay, well, let's find some commonality between this saint that's acceptable and this Orisha from our real religion, and we'll just kind of like, we're praying to Saint Teresa, but it's really Oya. You see what I'm saying? It's called syncretization, but it didn't alarm the people that they were working for or owned by, and unfortunately in some cases, right? So they had to kind of like pretend, oh yeah, I'm Catholic, yeah, it's Saint Teresa, you know, but it's really, oh yeah. And there was enough of a similarity there because Saint Teresa was considered the mystic. She was she was always in trance and having like ecstatic experiences, and she's known as kind of like the mystical saint. And Oya's children are psychic mediums and clairvoyants and connected to the dead, and so it makes sense. So when this priestess is telling me like these are Oya beads and I'm a daughter of Oya, I felt this tremendous longing inside of myself. Like I couldn't even I was like, something like grabbed my heart and was like, oh! And then this sense of unworthiness of like, I'm not worthy of her. You know what I mean? Like this teacher, this priestess, this experienced witch is showing up with Oya beads. Like, I'm not a daughter of Oya. She is, you know, this whole weird 20-something-year-old, you know, how we are. And then when, so, you know, almost 7 or 8, 10 years later, whatever, my friend is like, here's this, I'm being spoken to. That's what that face was of disbelief, was because I felt like she was saying, yeah, you've always been mine, you know, and I had to kind of own it and recognize it, you know, as this was indeed a message clear coming through for me. And yeah, I don't know how we are on time, but there's a whole other side of this story I could tell you about Oya. I want to check in with you.
I'll tell you what, we're actually getting close to the end here of the bottom of the hour. I would love to have you on again if you're game.
I would love that. Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
We'll definitely plan for that because, as I mentioned, I mean, you've got so much, and obviously we can't cover it in an hour and a half. And I would love to hear the rest of that, to be honest with you. But if you don't mind, we'll do it. We'll do it on another broadcast. Absolutely. Before we end up wrapping things up here, I wanted to ask you very quickly: have you been following anything that's been happening with ufology lately in respect to the disclosure where the New York Times put out this article talking about off-world vehicles that we had in our possession, and then Tucker Carlson went on Fox News and reported it, and then they retracted it the next day, a couple days, saying, well, it wasn't vehicles, it was materials, and we may have recovered it. Have you been privy to any of this going on right now?
No.
Okay.
I honestly, yeah. Sorry to disappoint you. I honestly have a weird feeling around ETs and extraterrestrial sort of reality. I'm not really sure. I feel like it's more interdimensional than extraterrestrial. At least my experience has sort of led me to believe that. So I don't know. I can't really speak to it. I feel like I just sort of tune out to it. And I'll sit back and watch and see how it unfolds, maybe. But
I think a lot of us are like that, and believe me, sometimes that's the safest approach. You know, and of course, when you're involved in lots of stuff in this field, wow, I couldn't have said that any worse. When you're involved in creating a reality for yourself in the spiritualistic sense, and you're, you know, focused on the shamanism, you're focused on Reiki, you've got crystals, you know, you're researching. I know some of us used to investigate ghosts, the paranormal, stuff like that. Whatever you're working with, you know, there's only so much you can really fit on your plate. You know, I think, you know, obviously as time goes on, you know, you become wiser, hopefully, and, you know, are able to explore certain avenues. But you know what? Not all of it is for everybody, and that's absolutely fine. And you don't necessarily have to know about ghosts in order to live a wonderful spiritual life, or ETs, or whatever the case may be. So I definitely embrace that as well, you know. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So we are going to wrap it up very soon here, but I want to let everybody know, and it's more of a reminder here, that we do have all of the information for Naviae down in the description. Please check out her podcast, A Wandering Witch, which plays on Apple, Google, Spotify, and I believe other platforms too. So if you'd like to get in touch with her, you may do so, and she'll tell you where those are. Unless, actually, Naviae, do you have other platforms that you're working with right now other than the 3 that I mentioned?
Let's see. Oh gosh. Well, I use the Anchor app and they just sort of distribute it for me. So I think there's like 7 or 8 of them that they're on. So I'm not really sure. I guess go to your favorite podcast app and Google A Wandering Witch or search A Wandering Witch and see what comes up. I forget what they're called. The one I use Spotify, but I know there's like 6 or 7 others. I'll butcher it because it's like Outcast, something caster. I don't know. Like I don't use them, so they don't stick in my head.
Oh,
I can't
Showcast.
remember. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
darling. I don't know. But
It's Showcast, I think.
yeah, there's like 6 or 7 at least that it's
Okay.
yeah.
There's so many, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a million of them now. It's confusing. I'm sure one of them is going to have it. So if you do have a favorite one, someone can easily find it.
Awesome.
And the website is awanderingwitch.com, and I'm on Instagram, and A Wandering Witch was already taken, so I had to do _wandering_witch. So, and it was so funny because I was doing like an ad for my witch school last year, and this woman, one of the Wandering Witches, that's similar name, she was like, who is this? Like, I keep getting all this, it's not me. And she was like posting, she's like, I don't, and she like made her thing private because she was getting emails. It's silly. So if you go on IG, you have to double underscore in between them. And I'm on Facebook too, and Patreon, all that good stuff. Yeah.
Under the same moniker, right? A Wandering Witch with the double scores. Underscore, sorry.
The only double underscores is the Instagram.
Okay.
On Facebook, it's just A Wandering Witch, and my website is awanderingwitch.com, and my Patreon is patreon.com/A Wandering Witch.
Perfect. Easy to remember, guys. Keep that in mind. Please support, like, and subscribe. Naviae has given some great information to us tonight, some great experience, some great wisdom. And I really thank you for coming on. And it's been an absolute blast seeing you again. It's been many years, Naviae. I think we're looking at, whoa, God, we're over 10 years. I know that. Maybe 13, 14, something like that. It's been a while, but you look good, kiddo. And I'm really happy that you came on. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I was trying to think what year it was that we met. And I was like, 2005, 6, 8?
5 or 6. It was 5 or 6, I remember, because I graduated in college in 2005. I think I met you in 2006, actually. I think that's when it was.
Yeah. Our festival days.
Oh, yes. Believe me, those were so much fun. I had a blast meeting so many wonderful people. By the way, folks, I wanted to remind you that I have Rick's Realm here, and you guys need to go and subscribe and support this guy because he's got some fascinating stuff coming up. Check out his reviews. He did a sunglasses review that I thought was really awesome. He's an excellent cook, and you're going to see some of his pictures and videos on there. If you guys ever want to know how to make bacon, just talk to this guy. Go to his channel, watch the video, and I guarantee you'll never make bacon a different way again. So, excellent, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was
I appreciate
great.
you both being here. This has been very enlightening. And again, I've had an awesome time talking with you, Naviae. Thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me. Thanks, Rick. Nice to meet you.
You too. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying
awesome.
tuning in and watching. And yeah, so much fun. Hui ho. That means until we meet again in Hawaiian.
Cheers. Absolutely.
That's kind of like my tagline. Ayo.
Heyo, hui ho.
I can only say something in Turkish. Gurun shuruz. We'll see you later.
Wow, that's awesome.
All right.
I don't have Hawaiian behind me, but Gurun shuruz. Thank you very much, folks, for joining us again tonight on Dark Hour Paranormal. Guys, if you'd like to stick around, I'm going to go ahead and pop you off. We're going to close up, and we'll go from there. Guys, thank you very much once again for coming.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Another awesome show. Another awesome show. God, God, I love doing this. Man, thank you, guys, for coming and being who you are and supporting me and all of my friends. Guys, check out Richie Gufon. He'll be on in about a half an hour. And then, of course, our good friend Dave Scott, Spaced Out Radio, 12 o'clock. And Third Phase of Moon coming on late night. I think they're on at 4. Check out all our great friends and like and subscribe. We'll see you on Sunday night when I have Keith Anthony Blanchard, an intuitive author and contactee by extraterrestrials. This is going to be an excellent show too, guys. I hope you're there for that. Sunday night, 8 o'clock Eastern Time. Thanks for joining us, folks. Cheers.